Against? Carried. Thank you. So that was 6 months. What do we look like now? Moving now into our emergency budget update, and bring back Pramod, and Nicola. Thank you.
Kia ora, good morning everybody. Through you, Madam Chair, Nicola and I will be presenting the emergency budget update. So this is an update to the end of February 2021. Slide shown above now the recommendations for the report, and they reflect the key updates for this month. Firstly, we've got the usual financial dashboard, which provides an indication of how we're tracking against the emergency budget year to date. Nicola will provide an update on how we're progressing against our 120 million savings target, and finally noting an investment increase at Watercare, who have their board have approved an additional 22 million of investment for the current financial year. So moving to the financial performance to date, a lot of the messages will echo the messages provided in the quarterly update. Just a reminder that this is a financial update on how we're progressing against budget for the period to the end of February. So whether indicators show favourable or below budget or unfavourable, it's a purely financial indicator, not about operational or service performance. In terms of our revenue to date, things are tracking well, as you've already heard. The similar trends at the half year has continued up till the end of February, with both regulatory revenue and Watercare revenue, predominantly IGC revenue, tracking well ahead of budget and expectations. In terms of our capital expenditure, that is still tracking below budget. For most areas of council, some of that is driven due to timing more than anything else, but at the end of this quarter we will have a better indication of year-end forecasts, and we'll be able to provide a better estimate of where we'll be at year-end. Operationally, in terms of OPEX as well, we're tracking favourably to budget, and the key variances there relate to Auckland Transport, for example, who've had to spend a lot less on cleaning to date, and this was budgeted for anticipation for any COVID-related cleaning that would be required on top of their normal activities. In terms of risks and issues, the asset recycling remains the key major risk. Again, this is a timing issue of when the cash benefits will be realised. There isn't any action required to address that at this stage. Our debt projections and timing of when that cash will be realised means that no action is required at this stage, but we continue to monitor progress overall. We did have 3 days of lockdown if you include the 28th of February. There was no material impact on the finances to the end of February. The year-to-date performance that has been favourable has covered any impact of that. But we also had 1 week of lockdown at the first week of March. The results for March are not available at this stage, but we have worked with the CCOs and council departments to have an estimate of what that impact could be. If you account with the top up from Waka Kotahi continuing for public transport, that has minimised some of our impacts. The estimate for the week is around 3 million of revenue impact, and that's mainly down to parking and enforcement revenue, and the Lantern Festival was also planned for that week, and so that was an impact for Auckland Unlimited for that due to that lockdown. The other key update is in relation to Watercare's revenue and CapEx increase for this financial year. The Watercare board have considered their financial position to date, mainly taking into account their debt to revenue position. With the high revenue, the debt to revenue projections for the year is expected to be better than expected, but still remaining in line with the LTP projections and the indications that we've provided to them, the limits that they need to operate within. Taking that into consideration, the Watercare Board have approved an additional 22 million of CapEx for this financial year, taking their total budget up to 760 million. The projects that this funding would go towards are highlighted in the report itself, but the key reasons for approving the additional investment is to ensure that projects that are progressing aren't stopped or slowed down, which would have contractual implications. And also, some of the funding is required to plan for projects that are expected to be delivered in the next financial year. The other key thing to note is if there is any downturn in revenue for the remainder of this financial year, the IGC revenue is tracking that far ahead that that any downturn is expected to be accommodated, and Watercare would remain within their debt limits. So just passing on to Nicola now to update you on the savings progress.
Thanks, Pramod. So for the month of February, we have banked another 2 million of savings. So we're now at 107 million in total, or 89% of the 120 million target. The main item that was successfully concluded in February related to some procurement negotiations on the maintenance contracts relating to previous lockdowns. So that was very pleasingly concluded negotiation. We are tracking well. We're continuing to look at the moment at areas where we're underspending to see where we can bank additional one-off savings this year. And we have a high level of confidence that we will achieve the target by the end of the year.
Thank you.
And over to, happy to take any questions.
So I'll start with questions. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you for your presentation. My question was around the, was it 1.2 million? Was it 1.7 million in the procurement savings during lockdown? Is that mostly towards our major suppliers, or are there some little ones in there that were impacted?
I don't have all the details, and I suspect some of the information is possibly confidential. But I understand it was to do with the original level 4 lockdowns where it's taken a long time. It happened obviously so suddenly, took a long time to work through the reduced level of maintenance that could be provided in that period and the impacts on the contracts. I think it was the larger contracts.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I loved your final statement, Nicola, on the confidence that we will meet our savings target. Right, so thank you very much, and thank you for the work you're doing and keeping us updated. I offer for comments, noting that, you know, the savings that we made last quarter sort of absorbed straight away with the lockdown in some respects. Councillor Hills.
Yeah, just want a brief comment again. I guess one is just, my concern around if that savings doesn't move over the next couple months, that we don't just try to to do that if it's going to mean more staff reductions in a short term to meet a target. I know there are other savings we're making, we're trying hard to do that, but just if our revenue keeps improving, I would hate to do things that cost more in the long run. The other comment I do want to make is just because we've just finished, just want to congratulate everyone involved, a lot of our staff from Auckland Unlimited and that America's Cup and what has happened over the last few months. They had to do things on a quite a reduced revenue of what they expected. They didn't have the tourists. We had 50,000 people a day on Saturday and Sunday, and that was just from obviously Aucklanders, New Zealanders, managing that right across Auckland. And I think Viv Beck on the radio said that this week has been the biggest week for the city centre spending for over a year. So, it does show that our our investment in our events, even without tourism, can have a big effect after quite a tough time. So I know those staff have worked their butts off, and sometimes, almost 20 hours a day when you're looking at how those events stretch, whether it's the safety, the fan zones, the coordinating everything, switching stuff when there's a no wind day or a lockdown. I think all those teams out there who knows what they're got next if there's no events coming up, have done an amazing job for our city while we've been sitting in here doing the decisions based on that. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor Goff.
Yeah, just simulated by Councillor Hills's comment. We should be celebrating today, not simply because we won the boat race. That was great. That was a really good feeling down there yesterday. As part of our fundraising for the council, I'm offering to sell videos of the chair of the finance committee dancing like a teenager. But no, not on a boat. She was on. Yeah.
Point of order. Move on, please.
Yeah, we'll move on from that. But two things that were really important. One, we came in on time and under budget for the capital works. So there were savings that were made there that were reallocated. And secondly, in the course of the emergency budget, we did cut some of the OPEX costs for event management, but nevertheless, we managed those events perfectly well. There's a myriad of things that could go wrong. I think as a city, we can take real pride in the fact that we hosted this really well. One piece of new information that I want to share directly with you, I got a call at the end of the boat race from the Minister in charge of America's Cup, Stuart Nash, and he said the government would like to see a parade. They understood our financial position, and if there were to be a parade, they would fund it 100%. Now, I've raised that with Emirates Team New Zealand. They're still, I think, of the mind that we've celebrated. We celebrated last night. We had our fireworks display, leftovers not used for the Lantern Festival, but the offer is there should Team New Zealand want it. I'm just taking into account that, when we brought the cup back from Bermuda, 90,000 people walked down the road. They weren't 90,000 wealthy people. They were 90,000 people who were a cross-section of our community from all different ethnic groups, from different income levels. And I tell you what, some of the most patriotic people down there that I saw yesterday were New Zealanders. They were really into it. There is an outstanding question about what happens now with the Cup, the next offence. Our position, I think, is reasonably clear on it. We made a contribution of $112 million to create facilities. We did a good job with those facilities. They're ready to be used again. And, the reciprocity we're probably looking for from Team New Zealand is we've made that investment, not council, but Aucklanders. Aucklanders made that investment, and we would like to use those facilities again. We are not in the business of bidding against Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Isle of Wight or anywhere else. We don't have money to throw at the problem, and I would not be in favour of throwing money at it. The government has announced that they will provide finance for the team to stay together for the next couple of years, and they'd do again what they did in terms of meeting the cost of the hosting fee. And I think my position on it, I hope it's in line with councillors, is to give real encouragement to Team New Zealand to stay here. Peter Burling clearly wants to. How did he win on Tuesday? He knew where the wind was coming from because he knew the Waitemata Harbour. He welcomed the huge amount of support from Aucklanders and New Zealanders. So we should push hard. In the end, it's Team New Zealand's decision. And I am conscious that in 2003, a country without a coastline, Switzerland, bought out our skipper, bought out our chief strategist, bought out our sail designer, bought out our ship design team, and we went into 2003 with an inexperienced crew. They've got some realities they've got to face up to, but I think that with the offer by government and our offer to continue to improve those facilities on the wharf, we've got a very good offer that I hope that Team New Zealand will take up. So I just want to share that with you this morning, and thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Fletcher. there's no money for a ticker tape parade out of this committee.
Congratulations, Your Worship. I am so heartened to hear what you've just told us, and I think your ongoing dialogue with government creates a really special opportunity. I had the privilege of being mayor in 2000 when Team New Zealand successfully defended the America's Cup. And very few things create that sense of total euphoria and excitement. I think yesterday we were all abuzz, but for many people, I know myself included, the viaduct was so full. The viaduct has been so successful. The viaduct would not exist without the America's Cup. There's been huge investment over decades into this. While I appreciate that Grant Dalton and co will make the final decision on this, there is a sense of ownership by all Kiwis, particularly Aucklanders. And I really passionately feel that we should enable something modest. It doesn't need to be grand, but it's more about the occasion of people coming together and celebrating that moment. I probably wanted to be down at the viaduct yesterday with my grandchildren, but that area had closed off. You know, I mean, in terms of health and safety, there are a whole range of people who, for whatever reason, couldn't get there to feel that moment. I think we owe it to them. And I know that Team New Zealand can be quite strong-minded about things, but I think on this occasion, and I rely on your good judgment here, sir, but I think it's an event we should have. And as you know, I am not one to want to see anything from the city going into funding things that are unnecessary, but this is very special, and this touches the heart of so many, and it's our opportunity to enable a thank you to everyone for what they've shared. So I hope you can pull it off.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't want this financial item, which is the emergency update, to actually morph into what we do about the America's Cup. So if you've got a comment about the emergency budget, please feel free. Councillor Dalton? Sorry, Councillor Darby.
Look, thanks. Look, massive success. I do think we need to get a post-event analysis from Auckland Unlimited. There was a business case for our investment. We need to go and check on that business case now. One of the elements I would like checking is that, I mean, there's no doubt that Aucklanders and New Zealanders, I think New Zealanders, other than Aucklanders, were watching that cup. But I'm really interested to see how did we meet those targets in international reach. I really am a bit suspicious about those 100 million worldwide viewer numbers. A friend of mine in the US, I assume they were watching it, mad keen Volvo watches, America's Cup watches. The response was, are you kidding? $174 for streaming? I'm out of here. My brother-in-law in Germany, mad keen America's Cup watcher, he says, no one's covering it here. There's nothing in the media. And he said, I can watch it. I watch it on YouTube after the races happened, which is free. So I think this international reach, that part of the business case, I'd be really interested in finding out whether that was sold to us accurately.
I spoke to Nick last night. That report is coming, so no worries about that. And if we're talking about personal circumstances, yeah, a friend of mine in Switzerland did watch it, so I mean, yeah. Hey, listen, I just want to come back to where we are, the emergency budget update. I just want to, again, Peter, thank your staff for what they've done getting us to this point. I'm always nervous about my weight loss analogy on the savings, but it's getting tighter as we get to the end. But I was really, Nicola, thank you for your confidence around getting there. So I'd like to move the emergency update for March. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Worship. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.